Kia Sorento 3 Prime. Let's start the analysis of weaknesses and breakdowns of the Kia Sorento Prime with the most popular 2.2 D4 HP engine in the line. This diesel engine can deservedly be recognized as the most trouble-free and optimal unit when buying a Sorento on the used car market. He is quite resourceful. He has the fewest surprises. It is fair to say that this can be understood only under the condition of timely service and normal human diesel fuel. He will not forgive the slightest mistakes in this regard. The first problems from 2.2 D4 HP can be obtained only after 200 TkM when the injection pump gets tired. It is best to check and, if necessary, renew the pump preventively before such a run so that chips from worn-out mechanisms do not destroy other expensive fuel line components, including nozzles. I don't have a single reason to exchange a diesel for a 2.4 G4KE gasoline. However, I won't definitely dissuade from a light fuel unit. No reason. Nothing bad happens to him, the resource is about the same. The badass on the forums may appear, but only after the destruction of the catalytic converter. By 50 TkM, it is better to open this powder keg, remove the ceramics and install a flame arrestor. Rest assured, there will be nothing more to worry about. But harmless oil leaks and sweating happen. Most often, either the pallet or the front cover of the chain is snotty. By the way, the chain lives quietly for 250,000 kilometers. For those for whom the dynamics of the 4-pot Sorento Prime will seem childish, the Koreans came up with a 3.3-liter V6 named G6DB. Well, how did you come up with it? Again, they took the design from Mitsubishi. The only pity is that for the explosive dynamics of Sorento with V6 you will have to pay not only upon purchase, but also feed it as you own it. G6DB is traditionally prone to two things: carbon formation and oil consumption. More often than not, one disease feeds on another, and periodic decarbonization temporarily helps keep oil consumption within reasonable limits. Also, as with the inline 2.4, the V6 also has a problem with the catalyst. Actually, there are two of them. And there are also a bunch of valves, the thermal gaps of which need to be adjusted every 100,000 kilometers. Not cheap, you know. After restyling, 3.3 replaced the modified 3.5 G6DC. It is too early to talk about his final solvency. Today he is still too young. Although the owners note a decrease in oil appetites, another problem seems to have appeared: oil starvation in the first seconds after launch. So far, it is only known that not everyone has a malfunction, and the problem is radically solved only after installing an additional oil pre-supply pumped to the upper parts of the engine. The version with a manual transmission Kia Sorento Prime somehow did not get it. Only automatic. Moreover, traditional, hydromechanical and, as a result, reliable. Before restyling in 2017, it was a 6-speed A6LF2 unit. There were cases of premature failure of the torque converter, but almost always the gearbox was changed under warranty. It happened that the oil was not topped up even at the factory, because of which kicking can be felt, which, again, were eliminated even during the dealer's leaving. The resource of the machine before the first overhaul is very average, 200 to 250,000 kilometers. After restyling, the 8-speed automatic A8MF1 took its place in the transmission chain, which, with the same dimensions, added a couple more clutch packages. They complicated it a little, but so far the owners of obvious problems do not notice, which cannot but rejoice. The most famous disease, Kia Sorento 3, is located a little further in the transmission chain in the all-wheel drive system. The loss of grease from the spline joints of the angular gearbox has affected almost every lover of modern all-wheel drive Koreans, so there are a lot of complaints about this. So far, only periodic prophylaxis can be considered the only cardinal solution to the issue, namely, filling fresh grease in the gearbox cavity every 40 TkM. Otherwise, you risk devastating the family budget by a 5-figure sum. In general, prevention is always cheaper. Besides, specialized services have learned to provide such a service quickly and relatively inexpensively. But that's not all. Next on the list is another Dynamax rear axle coupling. Of the positive moments for her soul, one can only note the overly vigilant protection against overheating. It's worth a little floundering in a puddle in the yard as the electronics turn off the clutch and leave you face to face with a helpless hippopotamus and a shovel. That is, it is almost impossible to overheat the clutch, but breaking it is easy. Many Sorento Prime owners know what it's like to drive out of an icy area onto dry pavement and hear a thud from behind. This disturbing sound means only one thing: a break of the clutch basket from the shaft. The most interesting thing is that no errors may light up at the same time, since only the mechanical part suffers. Computer diagnostics are often powerless here. This is bad news for those who are going to buy a used Sorento, so it's best to have a professional check who is aware of the weak points of the model and knows how to check the assembly. There are 3 ways to return the drive to the rear wheels, and all of them will not give any guarantees of protection against relapse. You can put a new clutch, you can find a restored unit, or find a specialist who can perform decent sintering and welding. Perhaps the case when, again, it is better to find a specialized service to solve this problem. In 2017, the Koreans listened to the pleas of the owners and, especially for those who do not want problems with the all-wheel drive Kia Sorento Prime, they released a front-wheel drive version. A good purchase for those who have a Sorento just like that to show off their appearance. Owners have to pay the least attention to the suspension. She is simple and unpretentious. It is better to know the truth about some weaknesses in advance. The most important miscalculation can be considered unadjusted wheel alignment, with which Sorento sometimes left the car dealership. Some owners had to carry out this procedure immediately after buying a car. The second problem is the rear shock absorbers. Weak, not the most resourceful, it happens that they do not reach 50,000 kilometers. Ball bearings at first also did not differ in reliability. However, most often they were changed to modernized ones during the recall campaign, which negates the problem. Otherwise, the life of the chassis and steering elements is quite average. Bushings and stabilizers struts live about 100,000 kilometers, silent blocks of levers about 150 tkm. Many Sorento 3 owners are worried about the rustling in the cabin when the wheels are averted. Dealers do not name the cause of such auditory anxiety, they simply change the entire steering column indiscriminately, which leaves no chance for extraneous sounds. A few questions arise, and to the brakes. The front discs are not particularly productive, which can quickly overheat and start hitting the steering wheel when slowing down. As the owners themselves report, if you choose the right non-original clutches, then there will be no more such problems. Finding fault with the body of the Kia Sorento Prime is difficult. Even after years and tens of thousands of kilometers, the appearance of the crossover remains quite fresh and cool at the same time. Chips, of course, are formed, especially in highway cars, and corrosion in places of damage begins to be covered with a red film after a couple of months, but things don't go beyond this if there were no serious deformations of the metal, that is, an accident. Chrome eventually leaves the grille and other decorative elements. This is natural. Even representatives of the premium segment sin the same. What do you want from Kia? Fogging headlights on the Sorento Prime should not be taken as a malfunction, although it all looks ugly. Dealers sometimes change them under warranty, although there are no guarantees that a relapse will not happen. Among the auxiliary equipment of the Kia Sorento Prime, the standard multimedia system confidently occupies the pinnacle of fragility. Problems with the head unit caught a lot of people. It doesn't matter if the radio simply didn't turn on or some functions simply stopped working. In most cases you have to change the entire GU, or look for such a rare specialist who can replace the board. Otherwise, Sorento 3 will not require serious costs. The weak point here is also the aluminum tubes of the air conditioner. They oxidize and sometimes lose their tightness after 3 to 4 years of operation. With each refueling with Freon, it is worth checking the system for leaks. Sometimes you may encounter a failure of the keyless entry button on the driver's door, which is why you just need to change the handle for a new one. It is best to do this after confirming the diagnosis from your auto electrician. The interior of the Kia Sorento Prime does not abound with weaknesses, although it sometimes looks not very fresh even after modest runs. The fault is the quality of some materials. For example, the leather on the steering wheel wears out quickly and cracks. In this case, dealers prefer to change the braid rather than change the entire steering wheel, which puzzles many motorists. They can be understood, because such an approach can negatively affect the sale of a car on the secondary market. Not all buyers are aware of such a problem, and an altered steering wheel can become a reason for suspicion of winding the mileage. Traditionally, for many Kia Hyundai models, the front seats were bullied by the owners. The sides of leather chairs quickly shuffle. Besides, the upholstery can easily burst at the fold. What else brings a few negative touches to the fatigue of the interior of a used car? By the way, checking the original mileage is possible here. If earlier the Koreans did not store independent mileage anywhere, now Sorento Prime writes a cell with the original mileage in the engine control unit. More precisely, even one of them records the distance since the last regeneration of the particulate filter. Regeneration does not happen so often, which leaves additional hope for the truth when buying a used car. Plus, engine hours complement the idea of the intensity of operation. Again, contact specialists with the necessary equipment for verification. Conclusion. As you can see, many of the SORs echo those of the Santa Fe, but there are also their own branded problems, about which Hyundai owners are neither rumor nor spirit. Can Kia be considered less reliable? No. The overall picture of owning a Kia Sorento 3 will be identical and will come down to banal all-wheel drive prevention. Everything else is not so critical and expensive. Just change consumables on time, fill in good fuel, and don't drive hard to save the clutch. When buying a used car, it is best to consider diesel versions. Take it without hesitation. And there is enough torque for such a carcass, and there is less fuss with it. However, petrol 2.4 or V6 is also without serious pitfalls, provided there are no problems with the catalyst.